Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I thought I'd pop by and create another journal page in my Pink Pig journal. We did the clematis page, which is lovely. I've done the other page for a workshop, and then we did this page. So I'm going to do a separate page now, but I just want something nice and simple, just so I can have a little play in my journal, just for the sake of, just enjoying the creative time. So I'm going to do a project with my Auricula stamp TE2. So we'll just grab TE2. There we go. Now my book is quite sturdy, so it should be okay for stamping in, because it's got no lumps and bumps underneath, because those pages are all new. I've not created anything, so there's no lumps and bumps. But if you've got lumps and bumps underneath, just put a hardback book underneath your pages to give you the stability. And I want to colour the Auricula in sort of pinks and plummy colours, and I think I'm going to use my watercolours that I've got. So I'm going to start with a colour that will just sort of blend with what I'm doing. So I'm going to use Distress Oxide Aged Mahogany. So I'm just going to take the stamp and add a good layer of ink of the Aged Mahogany. So let's just give that a really good layer of ink. And again, just to diffuse the edges a little bit, I'm going to take a little bit of kitchen roll. Let's just fold that over. And then I'm just going to diffuse the edges a little bit, just so that the text isn't quite as harsh. So I'm then going to add the Auricula around about here, I think. So we'll add the Auricula there. Now my page is nice and sturdy, so it should stamp okay. And in the Pink Pig journals, it's a watercolour page, but it's smooth. It's not got all the lumps and bumps that some watercolour pages have. And therefore watercolours react quite nicely, and we can stamp on there quite easily as well. But I still like to give that a little bit of time, just to make a reasonable impression on the page. So do I want to rather than... So I'm going to take a mask which I've cut from copier paper, and I'm going to add that over the top, just so I can stamp a second one. So I'm going to ink the Auricula again for a second time, and just add plenty of ink on there. And again, I'm just going to diffuse the edge a little bit of the text, just so that it fades out a little bit. And I'm going to add this one around about, let's bring it down a bit, around about there. Do you like how I can't make my mind up? It takes me longer to make my mind up. Move me non-stick craft sheet just so that you can see what I am doing. So just add that ink. And just give it a little bit of time just to sort of make its impression onto the surface of that card. There we go. So we've got our imagery just on there now, and just giving it time just to sort of absorb onto the surface. Don't be too impatient, and then you get a good impression. So I'm just going to clean that stamp, mainly because I don't like to leave the oxide ink on there, because that affects the VersaFine Clair if you come to use VersaFine Clair on there. So I'm just cleaning that of any of that oxide ink. I'm then going to take the mask again, so just add that over the top, and then I'm going to take the fern stamp, which is TE3. So I'm going to take the fern stamp, TE3. I love the fern stamp. Let's just place that back, move that out of the way. And then I'm going to stamp the fern in grey. So I've got them on my acrylic block. So I've got the larger fern, and I'm going to use the permanent ink Morning Mist. I love Morning Mist. So I'm just going to take that Morning Mist. Let's just give that a little bit of time. There we go. And then I'm going to decide where I want to add the fern. So I'm going to extend the design and bring it further up into the page. So it just extends that design a little bit. And again, even though I'm using the VersaFine Clay, which is a permanent ink, I'm still giving that time just to absorb onto the surface. Now I've got no layers on there, you know, inks or anything, so the surface is a little bit more absorbent. There we go. Lovely. So the grey is nice and soft, not too overpowering. You could add your second generation if you wish. So I'm going to add more ink again to the same fern. Excuse me. But this time I'm going to bring the fern in just a little bit, so it's a little bit shorter. So it would just get part of that fern. So we don't get all the fern, we just get part of that. And you see, we just get part of the image there. And then I'm going to add my little mask again, just to the bottom floral. Just make sure that's in the right place. Oh, I was going to use the lid then to ink the stamp up. Then going to take the grey ink once again. So take that grey ink. And then I'm just going to decide where I want. Let's bring it up a bit. Let's add one here. Obviously we've got the smaller fern. If we want to add, you know, smaller ferns to that design. So you can do that as well, is add the smaller ferns. And what that's done is just extended the design somewhat, which is lovely. So let's leave it like that for now. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my watercolours. So let's take out, I should have taken the lid off these in the first place. Mine are Koi watercolours. I've had this quite a while now. So there's a palette that I can work on. And I don't know which colour I want to use, but I would like some plummy and pink colours. Can you see that? Let's just make sure you can see everything I'm doing. So the watercolours at the moment are dry, and I want to look at the plummy colours. So we're sort of around here, aren't we? So let's just let's just water these. And I want to look for a sort of winey, plummy colour. What colour are you? Let's just add this to. You You see, that's, can you see that? That's sort of a nice plummy colour that we can use. So we'll use the plummy colour, and I've got a little container of water because I don't trust myself with a big container, so I've just got a container of water there. I've got some kitchen roll. Now, you don't have to have watercolours like this. You can have watercolour pencils if you wish, no problem at all. And then I'm going to add the magenta-y colour, just the darkness, the dark colour, just around the edges. And then I'm going to rinse that out, just dab that onto my kitchen roll, just so that I don't add too much water. And then I'm going to come in and just blend that out. Now, the advantage of the watercolour paper is it does exactly as it says on the tin. It allows you to move that medium with your water. So a little touch of water again, and I'm sort of pushing into that so that the darkness stays where I want it to. I can bring this out a little bit. And the colour we've used in the background just works with that quite nicely with the aged mahogany. So just bring that out. So I'll just pick up that colour again, which I've got on my little palette. And let's go around the whole floral, just to add that darker layer. And because I'm using a fine brush, it means that I don't add too much of anything. So I can just come in, probably took a little bit too much water off there, just come in and blend this out. Now, because I've got moisture on my brush, that will react with the oxide as well, which is absolutely fine. I now want sort of a pinky colour. So, what colour are you? Is that the... Oh, there you go. I've got my pinky colour. So I'm going to come in with a little bit of the pinky magenta colour and go in just like I would with my pencils, go into the dark colour and just blend that out. Let's have a little bit more water and just blend that out a little bit. So just at the moment, just blending out that watercolour. There we go. So just, I need to remember the colours. I'm just going to make a mark on my palette and that one. I've only made a mark on my palette with an Inktense pencil just so I can remember the colours. They have numbers on, so I've got, I think that's 023 and 171, but unless you've got this exact palette, that isn't going to mean anything. But you can use watercolour pencils, you can use your distress oxides to colour with. Whatever sort of makes you happy. But sometimes I like using watercolour because the colours are very intense and bright. So you get that brightness and intensity of colour just with your watercolour. Drop a little bit more water. Just to blend that out. And again, just remember, you've got the colour on there also from the oxide. So you do need to remember that you've got the colour from the oxide. But I do love the intensity of colour from the watercolours, and with a touch of water everything blends out beautifully, especially if you've got the right card. So that sort of gives us our one layer of colour. Now it's only the oxide that is going to react. The permanent grey, that won't react at all. So I'm going to go back to my purpley plummy colour and add that initially. And the watercolour as well, you don't need much. You can just put it on your palette and the intensity remains. It's lovely. Gives you that intensity of colour. Then going to go to the pinky plummy colour and just blend that colour out. Just with the sort of pinky plummy colour. And just like with pencils, this is your one layer of colour, and you don't get much depth with one layer of colour. I like to just add several layers, but watercolour is very sort of easy to move, especially with the right cardstock. It's a lovely medium to move, especially on watercolour card. It moves really nicely. So I'm sort of just scribbling that out initially, just with quite a bit of water there. And I've got that slightly darker tint from the aged mahogany that's in the background. So let's just bring this in here. Right. So I'm going to, that one is still wet, and I've let this one dry a little bit. So I'm going to come in now and I'm going to add another layer of colour. So I'm going to grab the darker colour. That's the wrong colour, Tracy. That's like a reddy colour. This is why you mark them, because I end up picking up the wrong colour. So I'm going to come in now and I'm going to just add a little bit more darkness now with that watercolour. Just into some of my areas, just like I would if I was going in with a pencil. So I'm just adding a little bit more depth. No different than if I was using a pencil. So I'm coming in just a little bit darker with my darker colour. Let's add a little bit more darkness down here. But it makes a massive difference when you come to add the second layer of colour. definitely a lot more depth to it. So I'm just giving a little bit more depth. There we go. Little bit of water, and then I'm going to grab the pinky colour, pinky plummy colour, and then I'm going to come in with that colour and just drag this out. Now let's just use a little bit so that it's a little bit paler. There we go. So pick up the darker colour, the sort of the second colour, can't speak, and then bring that into the dark colour. So, but this time, when I've got the second colour on there, I'm rinsing my paintbrush then, and then blending that out. Let's grab a little bit more of that pinky colour. And you can go in with more layers of that colour, should you wish. But then before I sort of blend that out, I'm going to rinse the brush and then blend the edges out. Into nothing. So again, taking the second colour. So you could use any plummy sort of pinky colours that you wish. And I'm going to take a little bit of water and just blend that out. I must admit, I like to use the finer brush because it stops me doing anything too quickly, which is quite handy, so that it stops me adding too much water and diluting it too much, which is perfect. Now what I'm hoping is that you can see the difference between, let's move this up a bit, that one and this one. That's just a one layer sort of wash of colour, I personally think. So let's just add a little bit of water to the edges, and you can actually remove the colour as well if you want. You don't have to. You can lighten areas if you wish. So this one now needs more depth. Let's just bring a bit more. And really, you know, if you're a real professional, you should have clean water available as well. Which one are you now? That one? Oh, yes. Watercolours go a long way. Let's move this aged mahogany so you can see. So I'm going to come in now like I did with the previous one, and I'm going to bring in a little bit more depth. So I'm taking the darkest of my colours and I'm just bringing in a little bit more definition. And the drawing itself shows you where you can add some definition. You don't have to add it all in the same places if you don't wish, but it does show you areas to add a little bit of that definition. There we go. To make it darker there, where the petals overlap. And then I'll go to my lighter or second colour. I'm going to blend everything out with the second colour. Again, come in. Adding those layers of colour really does make a difference. Let's pick up a little bit more of that pink. And sometimes if you add a little bit too much water like I did there, you can just blot that and then start again, and it works quite nicely. So don't be frightened to go in several times into your project. It's absolutely fine, just to give that depth of colour. I must admit, when it's such a pleasure, as in the actual medium moves just how you want it to, it's lovely when you've got that. When you've got the right card for purpose, it is lovely. So let's just add. So let's just take a little bit of water now, and I'm just going to add a little bit of shading by dragging the little bit of the oxide ink, just dragging a little bit of that into the centre, just so that it's a little bit softer. I'm going to take a little bit of the lightest colour, which is the pinky magenta-y sort of colour, and just add a few little touches just to the inner part, and I'll just wash that out, just so it's a little gentler. There we go. So that's a little softer. And with the watercolours, it's so easy just to soften the whole thing a little bit, just so that you can see that. And then I do want to add some colour on the outside, but we'll sort that second. So let's go back to the dark colour again. Do you like how I keep forgetting which one I'm on? And I can come in again with the watercolour and just add a few more little touches of the darker shade, and it's just using those watercolours just like I would if I was using my pencils. I could come in with my pencils as well, but just by adding a little bit more depth each time, and just building up a little bit more interest in that floral. So I'm using the darkest colour just to bring in a little bit more interest. My brush is a bit dry now, so I'll just pick up the colour again, just with a slightly wetter brush. And I'm just drawing in some of the lines just with the darker shade. Just to bring in a little bit more depth and definition. I'll spit it out in a minute. I'm just going to come in here as well. Just add a little bit more. It's worth it just faffing a little bit, just to give a little bit more depth to your design. It really is worth it, just a little bit. And colouring always takes a little bit more time, but that's fine by me. So I can now see, should be doing this one first, I can now see that the pink, because I've got the layers, is definitely a lot more intense, a lot brighter. Pick up a little bit more of that colour. Now, if you spritz your paints first and give them a little bit of time, just so that they're wet, it works a lot easier. A little bit more depth on here now. So I'm just adding this second colour. So I've sort of added 3 layers now of watercolour. And because I've got a good quality substrate, and substrate means my card, paper or surface, whatever surface you're using, because I've got a really good substrate, you're getting exactly what you wish. You really should have clean water just to blend out a little bit of those edges. Missed that one. Pick up a little bit more. There you go. So let's just blend the edges out here. And we'll come back and add a little bit more definition to those eventually. So really we should grab some clean water. So I'm just going to tip this away. Bear with me a second, let me just tip this away. So now we've got some nice clean water, because it is good if you work with clean water. Clean. Now I'm just going to see if I've got a grey. That's dark turquoise. That is definitely not what I want. Do we have anything that's on the grey scale? Well, what colour are you then? There's some really dark colours in here and you can't tell you can't tell what they are. I'll tell you what we'll do. Let's move that out of the way. I'll now grab my trusty Distress Oxide in grey. So I do love Hickory Smoke. So we're going to grab Hickory Smoke. So let's take Hickory Smoke. Let's bring this in. I've got everything everywhere. And what I'm going to do before I do anything is I'm just going to add a little bit of water just around the floral. It won't even affect the fern leaf because that's a permanent ink, but it will affect the oxides the minute that water touches them. So I'm then going to pick the Hickory Smoke up, and then I'm just going to dab that onto the background. Now let me just check. Got some debris on there. Let me just check I haven't got a spray. Speckled egg, frayed burlap. So what I've got here is a Distress Oxide spray. So let's add the water, just so that the page has got the moisture on there. Let's just give this another shake side to side. And this will give more intensity. There we go. So now if I pick the water up, the oxide would definitely be more intensified because you've got that spray. It's not like using the ink pad. Let's drag that out. And you can see that's got more intensity of colour on there. So let's go round the whole floral. And it doesn't matter about dragging some of the colour from the floral. It doesn't matter one bit. Let's just take, there we go. So then I can take my Hickory Smoke Distress Oxide spray, and I'm just going to dab this into the moisture, just so that that bleeds out. There we go. So I've just got that on there, and then I can just take the moisture that's on the page and in my brush and just dilute that. And you really need a page that can take that moisture and is, you know, it doesn't break it down. Let's just blend this out. And you can see that I've used quite a bit of moisture there. Just blend it out a little bit more. Now the page will take it, that's fine. And what I'm going to do is lightly spritz with water. Once, twice. Was that enough? Maybe 3 times, maybe again. So I've just spritzed that with water. And what we're going to do is make sure that our non-stick craft sheet is not covered in water. And then what I'm going to do is go back to the watercolours that I had. And you know the sort of lighter colour, the pinky colour. Let me bring this in. So my lighter pinky purpley colour, which I'm then putting onto my palette here. I'm then going to sort of add some tinges of that just in the background. Just a few little touches of that in the background. So I'm just touching the background at the moment with a little bit of that colour, just so it's got a suggestion of that colour. And just touch it with your water so that none of it is too powerful, just so that it's definitely on there and it's got that tinge of colour. Let's just mop this up for a moment. We will need our I'm going to just add some flicks of water just so that that oxidizes and bleaches out areas I want. Again, I'll just move that to one side just so that we can dry our surface. and I've just flicked it with water so that it will oxidise a little bit. So we'll grab our heat tool. And we'll give that a little bit of a dry now, because I've given it a little bit of time to react. Now, if you don't want your pages underneath to have any of the colour that you've used on this page, simply put some copier paper onto the page below and that will stop that. So just give this a dry now so that it's nicely dry, because you don't really want to add anything else until that's completely dry. And you can see that the VersaFine Clair, the Morning Mist, doesn't move. It's only the oxides that take on that movement. So just give that a thorough dry. Now I'm not removing the colour now, it's just a little bit of moisture because I've dried it really. I want to show you the underneath page as well. I think that's important. So I'm just going to dry this. And I'm drying it because if I wanted to add a little bit of pencil work, really you shouldn't be doing that unless, let's just dry it from this side as well, unless it's completely dry. Now I've added a lot of moisture to that. And you can tell if you've got the stability back in your card because it's not sort of as floppy. So this is the page, and if we turn it over, it's not gone through onto the other side. It's really sturdy card in these A5 journals. Just brilliant. It really takes it. And don't worry about your page being a bit crumply or whatever. That doesn't matter, because as soon as you close the book, that will all sort itself out. Now I love the grey with the touches of the purpley pinky plummy winey colour. Do you like how I can't describe it? You know what I mean. So I love it with those touches of that colour just in there. I'm going to give that a little bit of time to rest. And then on the Auricula stamp set TE2, it's got the little stamp that's got the text, often displayed in individual pots on shelves, and it's a perfect little text stamp to add to the whole design. So I'm going to stamp this in Morning Mist. I love Morning Mist. I do love Morning Mist. It's just one of them colours. It's just delightful. So I'm going to add a little bit of the grey just in the background. And there's just something about adding a little bit of text that really sort of helps that. Let's turn this around a bit. There we go. But it really sort of adds to the background. Oh, I love it. So I'm going to add some more with the grey. So I'm going to add a little bit of text here. But what I love is, because the text from the stamp, I diffused it and it was done with an oxide ink, it's very subtle, that is, in the background. And it changes the stamp a little bit, which is just lovely. So we've got some vibrancy there as well, which is lovely. Let's add a little bit down here. Something about wording. I'm obsessed with wording because it always gives me a little bit of something to add to that design. So I'm just going to extend it a little bit up here. I do love that touch of pink in the background with the grey. Oh, lovely. Small things and all that. So it's had a little bit of time just to rest a little bit, so I can grab a couple of pencils, she says. So I just want a really deep colour. And of course, it's the one section I haven't got open. So I want a really dark colour. So I like that colour, but I want something a little bit darker. What colour are you? We could have like a purple just so it gives a bit of depth, or you can sometimes add a bit of blue. Let's just see what those colours are. So I've got a dark purple to give me some definition. Now, a lovely lady, Ginny, left a message on my YouTube channel, and apparently was saying if you use your less dominant hand to hold your pencil, put your pencil in and move your sharpener, and then there's less stress on your pencils if you do it this way. Ginny was saying there's less stress on the pencil, so you use your less dominant hand, which feels very strange initially, but then move your sharpener because it's less stress on the pencils and less breakages. So I've got a nice sharp point on that. Let's do this one. I do feel very I feel very weird using my less dominant hand, but hey, it's like I'm a real professional then. Thanks, Ginny. Right, so let's just move that out of the way. Let's move these bits of sharpenings out the way. So I've got a really, I think this is dark purple, and it's PC931. Now what I don't want to do is cover up all the watercolours because it's beautifully vibrant. What I want to do is just add a little bit more depth, that's all. So I'm going to use this dark purple just to add a few little touches of the lines with the dark colour, just to bring in a little bit more detail. And my page is lovely, it's not broken down, so that's fine. I'm just adding a little bit just to give a little bit more definition where the petals overlap as well. So I can just bring in a little bit more of that definition. Maybe just add sort of a darker edge just at the top here, just so it's a little bit darker. And just lightly flicking that pencil, that dark purple, just to give a little bit more depth. So we'll just do this to this one as well. Give a little bit more depth to the design. And the purple just gives a lovely little bit of shading, but without being too over the top, and doesn't cover up our watercolours. Just gives a little bit more depth to the design. And this sort of deep purpley colour really works well. And sort of adding those lines, giving it a slight curve. It's like it sort of moves the eye in. There we go. Just giving a little bit of depth. But you know me. You know I can faff for England. So let's just add a little bit of purple there. This one's a little bit lighter. So let's add a little bit more there. I'm then going to come in with the Process Red PC994 and just add a little bit more, just a touch of this colour on the top, just to give a little bit more definition and vibrancy. But what I'm not doing is breaking down that page too much. So it's going in very gently anyway. It's not like I normally colour, where I add layer after layer after layer. It's just a light layer, just to add a little bit to the definition and vibrancy of the design. Just to give a little bit more work. Yes. Then I'm going to go in with the lightest colour, which is hot pink, which is PC993. And I'm just going to come in with that hot pink and just make sure there's a little bit of the hot pink coming in there. Just press lightly, don't press too hard. You don't want to come in too hard with that colour. So as I go into the darker colour, I'm just pressing very lightly. And it just gives a little bit of lightness just to the edge of the petals. There we go. Just brings a little bit of lightness to that. Let's just add the second colour to the centre as well. The second colour here. Of course, we want to add some of our little bit of colour in the inside. Again, not too much. Just a very light layer, and then come in with that hot pink. Just so it's a little bit looser in the centre with the colour, not quite as so there's a difference. So let's come in now with the pencil work makes such a difference. Even when you only come in lightly, it makes such a massive difference. It's just, the depth is just, you know, I'm really into colouring at the moment. I absolutely love it. And I'm just going to, let's use the less dominant hand. Come on, Tracy. Oh, there's my container. And turn the sharpener. It does feel weird. It's only because it's my less dominant hand. Let's move that out of the way. I love it when you all pop by with your little tips. So I'm going to add a little bit of white. I'm obviously going to use the gel pen as well, but I'm just adding some a little bit of white as well, just to give a little touch. And it helps that the pencil is nice and sharp. Just so that you can get into those little details. It really does help that that pencil is sharp. And we'll add a little bit more vibrancy with our Posca pen as well. But you see, I've got this journal then that I can look back on, which I love doing. And even my own journal then inspires me to have a go with something different. Just adding those touches of white. There we go. So I'm going to add my Posca pen as well. Let's lift this up just so that you can see. Oh, I love the colours. The pinky colour mixed with the oxide. I just love that. Posca paint pen. So let's add a little bit of white here. Now, the Posca paint pen is a lot more vibrant. So what I'm doing is, I don't want to sort of overpower the design with going in with too thicker lines. So I'm just going in very gently, sort of adding some touches of white. Just to add a little bit of that vibrancy, but you can see that I am sort of just touching the page. And the problem is I get very addicted to the white. Just that there's such a difference when you add the white. It really does. It adds a massive difference. It really finishes your design off. But that's part of the fun, is a little bit of the, it's now picking up a little bit of the wax, which you expect. Just a little bit, just to highlight a little bit of white just at the tips, a little bit. I'm just getting carried away now. I'm going to add touches of white to the fern, especially where it's a little bit darker. There we go. And then I'm going to add some, well, no, I better add the splatters yet. What I want to do is I want to add one of the little cats. I'm going to take one of my little cats. Let's grab this. It already needs cleaning already, this cat does. The stamp. Yes, there we go. So I'm going to take the black ink Nocturne, Now the thing is, I've inked him, but I don't know whether I want that one. Oh no, I don't want this one. Let me move that out the way. I want the other cat. Trust me. Change your mind. That's our prerogative, isn't it, to change our mind? So give that a really good layer of ink. Just tilt that on the side. Have I got a good layer of ink on there? This ink pad is quite old now, but I still keep using it. So I'm going to add my little puddy cat here. There we go. Now I have got layers of the watercolour on there. I've got layers of the oxide on there. So I just need that to have a little bit longer just to make an impression, and a good impression. Brilliant. Just perfect. Let's just leave that there for now. Just so that you can see. I love that. Absolutely love it. So then I'm going to give a little bit of grounding to my little pussycat. Use my brush in the container of water and just blend that out, just so that he's grounded a little bit, and I can blend that out a little bit more, just so it's a little bit softer. Lovely. And then I'm going to add my splatters. So where is my large Posca pen? In the wrong container. So let's just give that a shake. And before you do anything, have a little bit of exercise for your bingo wings. Give that a good shake to get the paint flowing. If the paint still doesn't flow, just pump that lightly just onto the surface of your non-stick craft sheet or a piece of card. Don't press it so hard that you damage the nib. There we go, that's much better. Lovely. Now, Posca pen is going to react with the colour underneath. So I'm just going to dry that a little bit, just so that it doesn't react too much with the colours underneath, because it'll pick up the watercolour, any oxide that's there, because it's reactive to any moisture. So I'm making sure there's no moisture left in the Posca paint and just giving that a dry so that that stays as white as possible. You can use your bleed proof white as well. It's entirely up to you. I'm then just going to use my white pencil. You can use a pastel pencil, and I'm just going to add a little bit of white. I could use my Posca pen, but I just want it to be a little more subtle, really not quite as white, so just a little bit more subtle with the white. And then I'm going to go back to the stamp set, and on the stamp set it's got the text Auricula, so I'm going to stamp that on white card to add that. Put that back. I'm going to grab a piece of white card, and I'm just going to stamp that in black ink, Nocturne, VersaFine Claire. Let's add this to here. There we go. Place that back, and let's just grab my scissors. Let's hope we don't knock the camera like I normally do. There we go. Lovely. So then that'll just pop against my page. And again, sometimes looking through the camera helps you. So if I place it here, it gives balance towards the cat, or I could still have it here in the cluster as well. I do quite like it how when I place it here, it gives me some balance for the cat as well. So I'm going to add that there. So let's just add there we go. Just place this, let's place it sort of a little bit further down. There we go. And then we'll just give that a little bit of time to dry. Just so that, she says, as that starts to pop up again. Place my adhesive back. Just give that a couple of seconds just to grab hold. Then we'll add a little bit of shading just under that word, just so that it pops a little bit more. And then just blend that out. Just so that, there we go. Let's have a look at our page. Let's bring this down. I absolutely adore that. I love it. And I love this sort of pinky, mauvey, plummy, whatever colour, just mixed in with the grey. You can see the subtle touch of white I've added to the little cat. And I just love that for a page. I just love it. So I hope you'll give that a try, and I hope you enjoy the process too. So love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.